Good day, Year 9, and welcome to our first learning in this new remote learning series. Okay, just to kind of create a crossover period because some of you have done schemes of work that other classes haven't. We're just going to do a standalone unit probably for the next 4 to 6 lessons that's going to have a focus on practicing writing skills. And then we'll move you all into a new scheme of learning that you can do together. So this really is a standalone unit, as I said, on writing skills, but it's also going to remind us of the protocols of remote learning and our expectations as your teachers. And some of the things that we're going to be using to encourage your engagement and to reward your participation over the next few lessons. The first thing I'd like to draw attention to is that individual class teachers will be responsible for setting the lessons and therefore monitoring your feedback and your engagement. So we are looking to reward you for learning and learning with us in this new season, but we also recognize that there could potentially be difficulties and reasons that you can't do the work. So it's really important that you use your classroom teacher as your first point of contact if there's anything that prevents you from being able to engage with the lesson. That will be done through Show My Homework or emails. However, this round of remote learning, we've learned from last lockdown, we are also going to have weekly expert sessions run by an English teacher in person through Teams, where you'll be sent an invite to join that teacher, where you can ask your questions, get their feedback, and help so that we make sure that every possible hindrance or block to your learning, that we're just supporting you in working through it. Okay, so that's just a little bit of the context. So as I said, we're starting our standalone units practicing writing skills. And it's focus here on this word practicing, recognizing that writing itself is a skill that we master, that we embed, that we return to through practice. Practice is the repetition of something in order to develop greater skill, greater proficiency. So we are practicing writing skills. So there will be elements that are familiar, that we are rehearsing, that we are revising. There will also be elements that are new to move you forward. And our focus over this first lesson is actually not so much on extended and sustained writing, but the skills of planning. And as it says here, I'm not writing, I'm thinking out loud on paper. So we want to draw attention to the skills of writing, like note-taking, one-word responses, building up to some sentence level work as we start to think out loud on paper, as we start to draw down ideas from our imaginations and putting them onto paper. So you will need paper. You will need today's title, Practicing Writing Skills, and today's date. Okay, so I'm not thinking, maybe not, I'm not writing, I'm thinking out loud on paper. That's what we're really looking at today. So the skills of planning, prepping, and drafting. Okay, so the big ideas we want you to get by the end of this topic is that we really want to break that bad idea, that old soundtrack in our head that we are being forced to write, that writing is something we are forced to do, that we're only forced to write in English, that we won't use writing anywhere else. We want to break agreement with that fallacy, with that lie that we're forced to write and it's such a miserable thing. Such a big fib. Actually, the truth is, writing is a really powerful tool. And when we choose to use words, we are choosing to add our voice to a bigger story, to the meta narrative. And guys, you are living in really spectacularly unprecedented times. There is going to be points at which you want to add your voice to the bigger story of 2020, 2021, the decade that COVID hit. You will have something of value to say. Words are your currency. They're the tools by which you have something to say. And actually, writing takes your opinions, your ideas, and gives them permanency. Because when we write words down, they stick, they last. Okay? But if we're going to achieve that in the best way, if we're going to use words that stick, that people remember, if we're going to create a voice that people listen to, we have to practice our writing so that we can tell our story, share and explain and describe our experiences, our ideas in the best possible way. So our question then really is, how are we going to become a better writer over the next few lessons. And we're going to look at the different answers to this question. There is not one definitive answer to this question. There are different layers. So how do we become better writers? And our first thinking point is we're better writers when we think about our readers. We are better at writing when we realize we're not just writing for ourselves, for an audience of one, but that we are writing for somebody else. And it's relational. So as a writer, I want to be relating always to my reader. I want to be able to imagine my reader. I want to think about my reader. And I want to be able to adapt what I'm writing to best meet their needs, to get my reader believing in what I'm writing, valuing what I'm writing, caring about what I'm writing. So how do we do that? How do we think about our readers? So our question, and how do I think about my reader? If a good writer thinks about their reader, well, what does that really mean? So we're just going to introduce 4 keywords. Now, I want you to write down the keywords as highlighted, but the elements underneath you can just leave on the screen. Okay, so how do I think about my reader? The first thing I'm going to write down is we visualize. We want to see a picture in your mind. So what does that actually mean? Well, it means to visualize, to see a picture in your mind, that I'm thinking always about my reader. When they read this piece of writing I've done, when they're reading my story, my description, I want them to imagine something. I want them to imagine that they're in that spaceship. I want them to imagine that they're being convinced to do what I want. I want them to imagine that they care about the environment. I want them to imagine that um, the ride down the rapids was the most exhilarating experience of my life. So visualize, to see a picture in your mind. You've written that down. And that really means that we're thinking always about what do we want them to imagine as they're reading this piece of writing. We ask ourselves, right then, in their mind, I want them to see something. So the first thing to show we're thinking about our reader is we want to appeal to that visualization. We want them to see a picture in their mind. We also know that for readers to understand what they're reading, that's really important. If you're reading a text and you don't understand it, you're not going to read it. You're going to give up. You're going to do that kind of, I don't get it, and stop. So one way to think about that is to ask yourself, can my readers summarize what I've written? Can they shorten and select the most important ideas? In other words, am I writing in a way that is able to be summarized? So what am I writing mostly about? What am I trying to tell or teach? When we think about summarizing, it's using phrases like this description about a spaceship begins with describing the outside of the spaceship and then develops the idea that on the inside there's many gadgets. It ends with the spaceship taking off. I might have been watching Mandalorian this weekend, so it might inform some of my examples. Amazing, Disney Plus, Mandalorian all the way. But so I'm thinking about my reader. Can they summarize what they've just read? Can they visualize it? And the 2 other areas we would say is that we want a reader to be active. Now, an active reader is asking and answering questions as they read. There might be a question that they ask, something that they need to know. And as they're asking that question, it's really making them want to read on. It's like a hook, it makes them want to read on. So they might be asking questions like, well, who is that mysterious character? What is happening beyond the horizon? What does that blue flag mean? When was this set? Is that significant? Why does this dramatic kind of drop in temperature happen at this point in the story? Where is the story going to take us? So you, as a writer, want your reader to be asking questions. But we also recognize that sometimes as a writer, there will always be moments that need to be clarified. In other words, there's the moments that are really important that they're clear, because if the reader doesn't get this important moment, the whole story will fall apart. So when we talk about the skill, when we think about our reader in terms of being able to clarify, we're asking ourselves, what do I really need to make clear for them? I need them, that's the reader, to know what that blue flag means. The reader might not yet understand that we've traveled back in time yet, but they will. I think that this moment and the change in weather will help the reader understand that something bad's going to happen, but I need to show that clearly in the next paragraph. So clarify is really the ability to be a little bit self-critical, reading back over what we've written and thinking, wait a minute, is there anything there that I need to make clearer? So you're just going to pause now and you're just going to write down the highlighted elements, okay? So as a little subheading to how do I think about my reader? And we're just going to write down, how do I think about my reader? Visualize, see a picture in your mind, summarize, shorten and select the most important ideas, question what might they ask or need to know, clarify, what do I need to make really clear for them? Okay, brilliant. And so that makes us think like good writers. So a good writer begins to visualize what they want the reader to see, and then they use words to create it. Okay, so what do I want my reader to imagine as they read this sentence? What do I want them to be able to see? What sensations do they need to feel? What am I mostly writing about? What do I want my reader to learn or feel? What am I teaching them? So this is just again to give you that pause moment to write down, visualize and summarize. Okay, brilliant. So writers are also thinking about the questions that a reader might ask. What am I writing about? Who's involved? Where will the events take place? And to clarify, try and get a clear idea of what you're writing. Okay, so make sure by now you've written down those 4 keywords: clarify, question, visualize, and summarize, and those bits in brackets. Brilliant. Okay, so in a nutshell, the best writers always think about their readers. And we then build as writers and craft from the sentence level up to meet those needs, which is exactly what we're going to practice doing this week. So we're going to be practicing working at a sentence level and a word level. We're going to be writing for planning, and we're actually going to take a GCSE paper task. Okay, so we're going to practice these skills together using a similar task from a GCSE paper. So this should help get an investment in you, thinking this is going to be beneficial for the future. This is the sort of task that will come up on a GCSE paper. So there is a double kind of benefit of what we're doing this week. It has value to us now, making us better writers in the present, but also it's an investment in our skills as writers for the future. So in the GCSE paper, there's often a task where you're asked to respond creatively to an image. Okay, they will give an image within the exam and they will ask you to describe. Okay, so it's a skill of description. So we're going to craft some sentences today that help us describe a variety, 4 different images. Now, this task is initially designed to help us visualize and think about the skill of visualizing by offering us something to look at and then asking us to describe it. So, guys, that's what we're going to be doing today. So, this is our first image. So, I'd love you now just to write down image number 1. Okay, so you can just write down number 1. Now, in a minute, I'm going to ask you to pause. I'm going to ask you to give yourself a minute. Okay, so you're going to do the timing for this one. A minute to write down everything you can see. Now, for that first one, what can you see? It doesn't have to be a sentence at this stage. It could be just keywords. Okay? And then you're going to turn it into a summary sentence. So a minute to brainstorm, to write down everything you can see. And then we're going to use a minute to turn it into a sentence. So are you ready? So your first minute to take it to write down everything you can see, you can press pause, begins now. Okay, so you might be writing down, okay, I can see the sky. Okay, there's no clouds in the sky, it's plain. Okay, so I'm starting from the top of the picture. I can see it's almost like a bluey, transparency kind of sky. Okay, then I'm looking down. Okay, I can see some poles in the background, but very faint. There's almost like a line of trees or hedges. Okay, then I've got this machine in the middle. Okay, so around the machine, there seems to be like some dust. The back of the machine, there seems to be like I don't know what that would be. Is it like a propeller? Is it a turbine? There's something at the back of the machine. Oh, the machine seems to be green with some little red things on it. Oh, there's some swathes of is that corn? Is it wheat? I don't know, but it's golden. Some of it is standing tall. Some of it is like kind of maybe being pressed down. I'm looking towards the front of the image now. Okay, and I can see some broken bits of this corn. It's kind of golden. It's tall. Okay, that's my minute. So hopefully, if you kept listening, it was maybe because you were stuck, or you could have paused and done your own list. So what you can see, that's that kind of say what you see moment, okay, to visualize, say what you see and you list those words. Now I want you to look over those words. You're going to give yourself a minute to write a summary sentence. So you could say, the first thing in the beginning I focus on, then I see, at the end I'm looking at. But you're just going to write in a sentence how you would sum up that image, okay? So again, you're going to press pause and you've got a minute to do a summary sentence, just in one sentence to summarize that image. If you want to hear me do mine, stay listening and then you can write at the end, okay? So if you're going to pause it and do it by yourself, pause now. But if you're cheating slash working with me, so I'm looking, I've got some of those words, and now I'm going to just turn them into a sentence, okay? So I'm going to say my summary sentence. I can see in the middle of a field a big machine, green with red spots, moving through a yellow field of wheat or corn. The sky is blue with something in the background. There's my sentence. Okay, guys, you're back? Brilliant. Now, that visualization, say what you see, summary in a sentence is a starting point. So what we then begin to do is ask questions. Now, questions always are about expansion. So we've already done a first kind of consideration of this image through the visualization and the summary. Now we're just going to ask these questions. So questions themselves can be quite open. What, where, when, why, how are key what we call question stems. So in a minute, I'm going to fire some questions at you. And again, I want you to write down a 1 or 2 word answer based on the question that I fire at you. Okay, so ears open. Are we ready to listen? Brilliant. So for image number 1, what is the main part of the image your eye is drawn to? So what's your eye drawn to in this image? What dominates this image? Brilliant. Write something down. Where do you think this image is set? Brilliant. Write something down. When is this event occurring? So what's the time of day that this image is occurring? When is this happening? Brilliant. Why is the machine working through the field? Oh, got something written down? Brilliant. How does the machine work? Can you think? Can you use your imagination in some of these questions to come up with some answers? Brilliant. Okay, now this last bit, the relationship between the elements, again, to help with your expansion. So I'm going to ask a couple of quick questions. So which is more powerful, the machine or the wheat? What is the relationship between the blue sky and the golden corn? Now that's a more abstract question. But can you see how we're using questions to start to unpack and expand our ideas about this image? But we're still working on our first image. Now, that last part, so we've questioned, visualized, summarized. Okay, if you need to rewind and listen to those questions again, you can. But again, we're just generating ideas. We're planning. Okay, we're thinking out loud on paper. Now, what I need to make clear before we move forward, because we're going to see some linked images, similar in some ways, is first of all that machine actually has a name. So as a writer, what do I need to make clear as we move on? I need to not assume that you know what that machine is. That machine is a thresher. Okay, a thresher machine. And actually, is it corn? Is it wheat? I'm going to tell you so we move forward with clarity. We're looking at a wheat field. Now, guys, what we're going to do, are you ready, is we're going to see 3 other images. Now, for each image, I'm going to talk you through the same process, but we're really going to just focus on each image at the level of say what you see, the visualization, and the summary. We won't necessarily do the clarification and the expansion questions for each image, okay? That's just an example of how you can unpack and plan in more detail. But I am going to ask you for each image to pause and say what you see for a minute and then turn it into a sentence. So are we ready for image number 2? Right, say what you see. So you're going to pause for a minute. Maybe I'm going to give you a little bit less this time, 40 seconds. And I want you to write down everything that you can see. On your marks, get set, go. Now, if you're still listening to me, so what would I be saying for this image? What can I see? Okay, so huge expanse of blue sky. Look at it up there. The majority of this image is blue sky. And yet my eye's still drawn over here to the left of the picture to this. Is it a hut? Is it a home? It looks like it's got like a brown roof. It's grey, kind of discoloured building. There's a little bit of grass around it. There's two poles at the front. We've got this swathe of golden corn again, but much more, no sign of the threshing machine here or anything having been knocked down, but it's dark. Oh, that's my 40 seconds. Okay, so now you're going to do your summary sentence. So you're just going to write in a sentence, in this picture I can see. So your summary sentence begins now. In this picture, I can see a lonely hut home in the middle of a wheat field. There's my summary sentence. Okay, guys, we ready for picture number 3? So, guys, I'm going to ask you to pause again. I'm going to ask you to give yourself about 40 seconds when I say go to just write down as much as what you can see in this image, and your marks, get set, go. Okay, so what can I see in this image? Now, did you know with images, they are designed because a photograph is slightly different. Sometimes when we read, we just start at the top of the page and we work across the page and down. An image can sometimes be composed so our focus goes to different things. So actually, I'm really taken in by the wheat at the front, the foreground of this picture. It's really textured. You can actually see it's almost like little hairy stems coming off it. It's this lovely golden color, but it feels really deep at the beginning of this image, like it's really thick and dense corn. But then as I move my eye backward, I can see this beautiful sun going down. So maybe this is sunset, dusk I'm writing down. I can see trees. I can see these 5 silver cylinders and these 2 great bigger cylinders behind them. And then this tall, kind of like industrial looking building, a small barn, trees, clouds. Huh, that's my time. So I was starting to really summarize and list there. So we're going to just summarize in one sentence though. In this picture I can see, okay, in this picture I see. What did you get? Okay, we're ready for the final picture. So picture number 4. So guys, get ready to say what you can see, to pause and to write down all the elements you can see. You've got 40 seconds starting now. Okay, so if you're still with me, you're a little bit stuck. So what's this thing at the front of the picture called? So it's where the corn now, all of this in this image, all the wheat here is being cut down, isn't it? Harvested. And what's this shape? So it's like a cylinder, and turned into bales. So look, throughout all of the field, we can see this scattered kind of bales. We can see that the corn now is being completely harvested or sheared. Above the sky, we've got an emerging kind of grey cloud. So it's a different type of day, a different time of day, maybe. Okay, so, oh, we've got blue sky, brown sky, we've got green fields in the back. Oh, my time's up. So what can I see? Lots of little ideas. So now I'm going to do my sentence. In this image, I can see a harvested field full of bales with a grey cloud overhead. Brilliant. So have you got your summaries? So really, that's us beginning to plan. Okay, so far so good. Now, we've worked at a visual level. Say what you can see. Now, another thing that writers do that can really elevate writing and make it more meaningful is they can look at a picture. Yeah, I can visualize it. I can say what I see. But what does it make you feel? Now, the reason we like to write in a way that creates a sense of feeling is because we're complex creatures and we never usually look at something without it evoking a particular feeling. So we're going to look at some of these feelings in this word bank in a minute and think which words we could attach to the pictures. Now, guys, really, this feelings word bank isn't exhaustive. There are so many other feelings and words that might come to mind when somebody says, well, how does this picture make you feel? But actually, connecting what we see to a feeling is harder than we think sometimes. Some people do this quite naturally. Some people, they have to think about it a little bit more. So what I want you to do is I just want you to look through this feelings word bank. Just familiarize yourself, read through some of the lists. Then we're going to look at the pictures again and think, well, actually, if I was being honest, what does the picture feel like? What feeling does it begin to emit? Does it conjure up? Does it create in me? Do I look at this picture and feel that it's friendly? Is it a friendly picture? Is it a picture that creates a sense of kindness? Is it a loving, so sometimes you could look at colors and think, oh, those colors are quite tender. They make me feel like pinks and like dusky purples, and it might create a loving feeling. You might look and think, oh, it feels quite optimistic. It's got a cheerful atmosphere. This picture feels light-hearted. Oh, this picture, though, has a sense of something a bit run down about it. It makes me feel a little bit powerless, a bit impotent. This image has a sense of exhaustion. It feels exhausted. Actually, I'm looking at this picture and there's elements of it that are like fragile and vulnerable. This picture is depressing. It makes me feel depressed. This picture has a kind of lost, trapped, desperate feel to it. So all you're going to do in your own time is just press pause and have a look through some of these words. Then we're going to look at the images again and we're going to think about which kind of words we might apply. Now, they might be words that aren't on this list, but I just want to remind you through looking at these how many feelings actually we have at our fingertips. I always used to hate the kind of like X Factor emotional roller coaster analogy. I used to think, oh, I heard it every year. Everyone on X Factor was on an emotional roller coaster. But actually, there is something about our emotional repertoire. We have many different feelings, many different layers to our emotions. And this kind of word bank just means if you get stuck in a minute when we're looking at the images, you can come back to this list and choose some from this list. Okay. So just going to give you a minute. You pause here, give yourself a little bit of time to look through this list. Think about some words. Think, actually, I've already seen the image. I'm thinking of that last one we looked at, and you had that kind of grey storm cloud coming. So I might go for the word, oh, it feels a bit tense, a bit uneasy. There's a sense of fear coming in that one. That little lonely house all by itself, maybe a sense of sadness and weakness. That image feels a bit hopeless. Anyway, you're going to think. So just press pause, look through this list, and then we're going to go with the pictures again. Okay, so how do these pictures make you feel? So if we're looking across them, you can just think of some of those words from that bank. Now you don't have to do all 4 images, but remember we have written down in our book, picture 1, picture 2, picture 3, picture 4. We've got our list of words for visualization. We've got our summary sentence. So actually it would be easy if there's something to write down 4 feelings for a feeling for each image. If you find this task a little bit trickier, it is more what we call conceptual, more abstract, to look at a picture and to get a sense of its overall feeling. I've deliberately chosen images where sometimes the feeling is more obvious, sometimes it's a bit more discreet. So like I said, look at our hay bale. Look at the hay bale here and the dark cloud. So we could definitely go with some of those words off that bank of like fearful, a bit tense, something anxious. It might make me feel anxious. It might make me feel a sense of danger or threat. This one is a completely different feel. Even though you've got this great big metallic kind of boom industrial building in the middle of this beautiful landscape, there's a sense here with this gold of like beauty, of peacefulness. This sunset is kind of like casting this like loving, tender glow across the image. So I get a very different feeling from this image. Now, this one again, this I can't, even though it's so small, considered, the scale of that big expanse of that blue sky. There's something about this home that feels kind of like a bit lost, a bit distressed, a bit isolated. And then this one up here, we've kind of got the very first image, a sense of maybe, I don't know, like busyness, a sense of work being done. So press pause and write down for at least 2 images how they make you feel. If you can do all 4, brilliant. Excellent. So if we were then looking at these, so if you found that quite easy, brilliant. The other way to approach it is, let's see which of these ideas best fits with the picture. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to say the word and you're going to write it next to either 1, 2, 3 or 4. So where you've got your notes on picture 1, you might write one of these words. Where I've got picture 2, picture 3, picture 4. So which of these images gives you a sense of loneliness? Write it down, write it next to your image. Brilliant. Which of these pictures creates a sense of freedom? Which one would you associate with freedom? Now, you could put the best 2 ideas with 1 image. They don't have to be 1 per picture. Which image creates a sense of work? Now, we like to talk, I've said work there, but a sense of maybe industry and work. Which one would you associate with the idea of work? Which picture makes you think of beauty? Now, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So one person's beauty might be another person's busyness. But which one makes you think of beauty? What about busyness? Which image feels busy to you? Brilliant. Which image would you put the word threat with? So look at your images, write down 1, 2, 3, 4, where you've got your sentences. Sorry, where would you put threat? Now, alienation is a lovely synonym for loneliness. So actually, these two might go together. Which picture creates a sense of alienation, being alienated, alone? Which picture creates a sense of scale and expanse? Expanse, a beautiful word. Again, it means size and scale. It means something big. Which one would you put the word quiet with? Which image immediately or more strongly creates and evokes a sense of quiet and peaceful? Where would you feel most peaceful? Which of these images would make you feel most peaceful? Which of these images for you creates that sense of sadness? Where would you put danger? Fear? Any of them create a sense of excitement? What about mysterious? Where could you attach the word mysterious? So, guys, if you need to, you can just pause here. You know from your notes, we've got picture 1, picture 2, picture 3, picture 4. So just work through these keywords. Where would you put these words? Which pictures would you attach them to? Now, sometimes, guys, we can get what we call juxtaposition, which means I'm looking at one picture and it feels like this, but it also makes me feel like this. So a classic example of that is sometimes danger does create a sense of excitement. The threat, the sense of danger, but actually at the same time we get the adrenaline rush and we feel excitement. So if I'm looking at that stormy hay bale scene, I'm feeling the danger from the impending storm and the darkness of the clouds, but a little bit of excitement that I might have to run and escape the rain, or that I'm going to get soaking, but it's okay because I've got the job done, so all my hay bales are done. And actually, sometimes getting caught in a storm can be exciting and powerful, and I'm testing myself against nature. So don't be afraid if some of your words seemingly contradict each other. It's a but moment. This might feel lonely, but actually also peaceful. Okay, so press pause and off you go. Okay, guys, so our final stage for today is to turn all those ideas into some sentence level writing. Now, it says here that you've got to copy and complete each sentence stem, focusing on using the because to offer a reason and an explanation for what you think. Now, I've deliberately done what I don't want you to do. I've circled my little lowercase t at the beginning of my sentence and at the end of my sentence where I've missed my full stops, because I want to remind you sentence level writing takes the pressure off writing a lot. So what we write has to be accurate. We want those capital letters and those full stops. We want to set now a good technical standard. Okay, so the thresher in the field represents the feeling of because. So, for example, the thresher in the field represents for me the feeling of busyness because it's churning up dust and slowly working through the field. That would be my answer for number 1. So you're going to copy and complete each statement. Now, we've got all the ideas ready to go because of the work we've done before. So this is this idea of translating our thinking out loud into a final outcome of sentences. Okay, so everybody is going to do these 4 sentences. You're going to press pause in a minute and you're going to copy and complete. So the small house in the field of wheat creates a feeling of alienation because the house seems insignificant and in the middle of nowhere. The wheat plain, overcast with a black sky, creates a feeling of danger because a storm is coming. The wheat field with sunset and farm buildings creates a feeling of beauty because the corn is golden and the sun creates a beautiful effect in the sky. So guys, the bits after the because can be as expansive as you like. They can be as short, they could be 1-word answers, 2-word answers, they could be an expanded sentence. But you're going to pause now and you're going to complete your sentences. Off you go. Now, this time you're going to see that the first part of the sentence has stayed the same, but we're using but to introduce a different idea. So what I love about buts and becauses and so's, as you're going to see for the third one, is it gets you to look at the same thing in 3 different ways. Now, one of the biggest kind of like questions, issues raised always by students in creative writing tasks is, but I don't know how to expand it. I've got an idea, but I get stuck at this one level. I can't take my ideas further. And actually, looking at the same picture in different ways creates different layers for your writing. So here we've got the same beginning. The thresher in the field represents the feeling of work and busyness, but it also feels intrusive, messy, and loud. Okay? The thresher in the field represents the feeling of work and busyness, but it also feels controlled and purposeful. So a but always gets you to look at the same image but in a different way. The small house in the field of wheat creates a feeling of loneliness and isolation, but also peaceful. But it's also peaceful. The wheat plain overcast with a black sky creates a feeling of danger, but also excitement. The wheat field with sunset and farm buildings creates a feeling of beauty, but also mystery. So, but just means you're looking at the images and you're trying to approach it in a different way. So, this time you're using the starting part, but you're offering me a different but. So, you're going to work through those sentences, okay? And you're going to give me a but. If you're worried about time and it's taken you longer, or you're looking like you've already been working for longer than the hour, guys, don't do all 4. Choose one, because I want you to have a go at a so sentence. If you've been working and you've still got 20 minutes, 10 minutes of the lesson left, go and do all 4. But we are trusting you to manage the timing of these lessons, all right, my lovely? So if it's taking you a little bit longer on an earlier task, speed this one up by only taking maybe 1 sentence or 2 sentences at most, okay? So I don't want you here longer than an hour, guys. That would be wrong. So finally, we've got our but sentences. Now, so always offers a consequence or an outcome of an idea. So for this one, again, the same message. Do all 4 if you've got lots of time. Don't go for longer than an hour on your lessons, guys. So if you feel you've done really close to the hour, only have a go at doing one of these as an example. Again, the so moment gets you to look at the same image, but from a different lens, a different perspective. And that gives us more ideas to work with tomorrow. So the thresher in the field represents the feeling of work and busyness. So it may be harvest time. So I've come to a consequence and outcome based on reading that feeling, that image. The small house in the field of wheat creates a feeling of isolation and loneliness. So something bad might happen here. The wheat plain overcast with a black sky creates a feeling of danger. So a storm might destroy the crop. The wheat field with sunset and farm buildings creates a feeling of beauty. So this might be the setting for a romance. So with the so's, it's almost like a moment of prediction and a moment of thinking, well, what could the outcome be? What could happen next? Okay, so again, you've just heard some of my ideas. If you're really stuck, you can steal one. But I would love you to try and do a couple of these for yourself. Now, guys, at this point, I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to say thank you so much for working with me. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to bringing you lesson 2 tomorrow. Make sure if you have any problems that you're checking in with your teachers via show my homework or email. And when the link comes for our Teams meeting where we get to meet in person, again, don't be afraid to turn up and ask your questions. We want you to be learning at this time, guys. It's so important that we keep you moving forward. But you have to meet us halfway. Okay, lovely people. So do your final sentences. I will speak to you tomorrow. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate it.